Good morning, everyone. Can all hear me correctly?
Very good.
So it's always a pleasure for me to speak in public, and it is a skill that I would encourage all of you to acquire, because at the end of the day, life is about opportunities, and opportunities happen when you interact with people. So I was asked a few weeks ago to come here to deliver a presentation on artificial intelligence. And I thought about it, and I knew that many of you have a technology background, so it would be futile for me to speak about, the technology behind AI. Most probably you know more than me. But sometimes we geeks, I'm a geek, we tend to miss the point. Technology is not about technology. Technology is about being an enabler to something else. And this is what we are going to explore a little bit today. Why is it nice to have such beautiful technologies as artificial intelligence, but how can we use those kind of technologies and also other kinds of emerging technologies to make our lives better, and at the end of the day, to make the lives of future generations better? And it is an important perspective because, once again, we geeks, we tend to be always focused on our keyboards and screens. And sometimes there are beautiful things happening outside the screens. Okay, so very briefly, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, just for those of you who have not had me as teachers. So I'm a computer scientist, studied in France 25 years ago, returned to Mauritius and started working as a developer at DCDM Consulting, which was at that time the largest consulting company in Mauritius. Then very quickly I decided to teach. And probably there are two reasons for that. One, the first reason is that in my family everyone is a teacher. So it was in the blood, in my blood. And the second reason is that it's always nice when you know something to share it with other people. So when I returned from France, I knew that there was some big things happening in the field of technology. And at that time, in year 1998, 1999, Mauritius was not as advanced as today. So very quickly I saw that, difference between what I saw in France and what was in Mauritius, and I wanted to share this with others. So I started working at the Mauritius Chamber of Commerce and Industry, where I spent 6 years in the business school there, teaching computer science. Then I worked at the University of Mauritius for a number of years. And then I left the University of Mauritius. I quit the University of Mauritius to create my own company, which is called Knowledge 7. So maybe some of you have heard of it. And for many years, Knowledge 7 1.0 was a training company. So we trained a lot of people on Linux and open source software. It became a consulting company. We were the very first in Mauritius to develop mobile apps, Android mobile apps. And we did that for about 10 years. And then something happened. I got the opportunity, I got a call from government, and they told me, it would be important for a country to have a good advisory layer in terms of technology. It's always nice when you're a government to take decisions, but then those decisions needs to be based on, actual deep reflection. So they told me, what about you coming in government and being the senior advisor in government for everything which has to do with technology and innovation? And I thought about it, and initially I said no, because I didn't want to mingle with government. But I'm very, very happy to have said yes and put my company on pause in some ways. Because when you work in government, despite what people say, you get to understand that a country is very complex to run. A company is very complex to run, but a country is 10 times, 100 times more difficult to run. And it's very difficult to run, and it's very difficult to plan, what is going to happen in 5 years, in 10 years, and 15 years. And it's only when you are inside, that you really understand this level of complexity. And this is why sometimes when I hear people criticizing, for instance, when I was coming here, obviously I was listening to the radio, And obviously people were complaining. And obviously I was telling myself, those people have never had the opportunity to see how difficult it is to make a country work. And so it's easy to criticize. So I was very happy to have had this opportunity to understand at the very highest level how things work. And then after 4 years, I said to myself that I needed to do something else, and I went to the United Nations. The United Nations Development Program, UNDP, is the implementation arm of the United Nations. So what does the United Nations do? Most probably you're already aware of that. Basically, the United Nations is the largest organization on the planet. And every year, all world leaders meet in New York and they decide on a number of priorities. And then they tell UNDP, which is part of the United Nations, make it happen. So for instance, in Mauritius, one major thing that UNDP is doing is replanting coral reefs around Mauritius and Rodrigues. You see? Another thing that UNDP is doing right now is in Mauritius is installing batteries everywhere on the island so that when we'll have solar panels on our homes, we'll be able to store the energy. Because it's very nice, you know, producing electricity, but if you can't store it properly, it's wasteful because we tend to use electricity at night. So instead of having batteries in every single home, there are big batteries being installed in Mauritius a little bit everywhere, and this is the kind of work that the United Nations does. Great development work. And I stayed at the United Nations for 2.5 years, and I was the head of experimentation in a new structure called the Accelerator Lab. And basically my job was to look around in Mauritius, in Rodrigues and Seychelles, about all the interesting things happening. And once I saw something interesting, which I felt could be useful for the country or the region, or the continent, African continent, it was possible for me to finance those people and ask them to test their whatever idea they had or whatever product they had to make sure that it was working correctly. And once it worked correctly, then it became part of the things that we could do on a large scale in the country. So I was head of experimentation. Okay, so I left UNDP in April, and now I'm back to being the director of my own company, except that now it's 2.0. Why? Because I'm interested in technology, I am a geek, but because of my past at the level of policy in government, and then policy internationally, let's say, I've come to understand that technology, once again, is much more than technology. It's a formidable enabler. Fine? So, let's talk a bit about emerging technologies. And I suppose that since yesterday, you have been, given a lot of information about, things like drones, blockchain, big data, augmented reality, etc., etc., etc. Now, unfortunately, for many people, those things tend to be buzzwords. And when they stop being buzzwords, when they are actually used, people tend to use them superficially. Now, this is very nice when you are in an organization which is doing something just for the quick win, just to get some money at the end of the month. But when you are working at the level of a country and you need to invest in something, you need to invest by knowing what you are doing and actually choosing the appropriate emerging technology instead of trying to do everything. Okay? Because we need to be realistic. Budget is limited. The kind of people that we have also is very limited. And we are talking about the long term. So one interesting question that we might ask ourselves is, among those emerging technologies, which ones are the most interesting for a country like Mauritius, given its level of development? Now, one thing you need to understand, and this is something I understood when I was working at the UN, Mauritius is considered as a technology advanced country. Okay? Compared to the other countries from the African continent, most of them, Mauritius is very advanced. At the same time, Mauritius is considered to be a rich country. So, we have problems that are quite unique to our situation. We're a small island, very prone or vulnerable in some ways, climate change, yet we are rich, yet we are advanced, and therefore the kind of combination that we have here is, once again, very, very unique, which obviously means something. We can't copy what is working in the Silicon Valley, because there things are different. And we can't also copy what is happening, let's say, in Nigeria, because there things are different. One big issue that we are having in Mauritius is natality rate. Mauritius is one of the few countries on the planet where the population is actually decreasing. This has started last year. And this is a major issue because we don't have a clue in 10 years how people are going to get their pensions. Because the way the pension works is that those working pay taxes, and this tax is used to pay for the pension of the retired. But when the population is decreasing, the system doesn't work anymore. So you see, Mauritius is very unique. So it is very strategic, very important for us to understand what to use and why. Okay? And in my opinion, based on my experience, I think that this technology is extremely important. IoT, Internet of Things. Now, what is IoT? As you already know, it's about having sensors everywhere. All those sensors spend all their time measuring data in real time and communicating this data elsewhere through the internet. Hence the name, Internet of Things. Everything is connected on the internet. Now, why is it interesting to be able to measure everything? Obviously, it is about, afterwards, when you measure something, you can actually use this information to make informed decisions. Now, before making informed decisions, you need to store this massive amount of data somewhere. So where do we store data? In databases. So do we need to have people who are very, very good in installing or deploying Internet of Things across the whole country? Yes. Is it already the case? Do we have sensors everywhere? Not necessarily, but we are having more and more. Let's say all our reservoirs, for instance, are equipped with sensors. All our vehicles are equipped with sensors. But if you think about it, your phone is actually an IoT device. Everything is being measured, including your position, the thing that you're doing. Basically, Google and Facebook know everything about you thanks to your phone. And this data can actually be communicated to the authorities, for instance. So why would you share it with Google and don't share it with the government in order for the government to work better? So we already have sensors. How many phones are there in Mauritius, just for the sake of argument? 2.3 million. There are more phones than people, and all of them are potentially IoT devices. Okay? So once you have all this data, you can actually store it somewhere, and you store it in a database. And one emerging technology which is extremely important for Mauritius is the blockchain. Now, what is the blockchain? As you already know, most probably, the blockchain is a database which cannot be tampered with. Once you have stored some information in a blockchain, the data cannot be changed anymore. Why is it important? It is important because you need to build a country on trust. Let's say, for instance, you are trying to build the land registry, the database of all land plots and who owns that land. You can't build it in a normal database because anyone can come, any sysadmin, any techie, and change the name of the owner. Whereas if you're building it on a blockchain, you won't be able to. This is as simple as that. So in order to build trust in a country, we need to move towards technologies who actually are trustworthy. And this is where the blockchain is interesting. Not for doing crypto only, even though crypto is interesting. But it is about creating trust at the level of a country. So once again, this brings us to what I was saying at the beginning. Technology is fun, but the use of technology and the kind of promise that it has is more fun, if you think about it. The third technology, which is extremely important, is data analysis. Because you're measuring everything, you're storing everything in databases, obviously with the view of making informed decisions. And the big vision that I have is what exists in Singapore. In Singapore, there's something which is called the digital twin of Singapore, le jumeau numérique. And what is the digital twin of Singapore? It is basically a 3D model of Singapore where policymakers, ministers basically, they can actually click on a road, click on a building, and they know everything which is inside. So whenever they have to decide where to put a school, it's never done based on gut feeling only. It's done based on real, actual, tangible data. Is this something that we can aspire to in a country like Mauritius? Yes, because we are rich and we are advanced. And we need the right kind of people to build this kind of system. And interestingly, when I was senior advisor in government, the company who did this for Singapore, a French company, approached Mauritius because they felt that Mauritius was ready. But at that time, unfortunately, and this was just a few years ago, at that time, we were not ready as a population to understand the value of having something like that. But ultimately, it will have to come. So, what is big data? Basically, it is when you collect everything through IoT or otherwise. What is analytics? Basically, it's about statistics. But the idea is to make proper decisions. Now, sometimes the data that you collect is so large, and sometimes it is so unstructured that you can't make sense of it. When you can't make sense of data, what do? You ask a machine to try to make sense of it. And this is where we get deep learning, machine learning, and AI. For us, geeks, AI is not magic. It is just a technology which can read billions and billions and billions of items of data and try to understand if there is any structure within. This is the whole point of AI. It's not magic. Okay? It is just one technology like any other technology. Fine? Your mum might believe it is magic, that's fine, or your dad. But us, we are supposed to be people who know. Now, for some funny reasons, people think that AI started when ChatGPT was invented 2 years ago. But this is false. The very first time the word AI was coined was in 1957. So we are talking of, how many years? 60 years ago? By this guy, McCarthy, had just passed away. And at that time, his idea was to try to see if it was possible to have a machine which could replicate in some way some of the tasks that we humans know how to do. And so we went through a number of phases, AI, machine learning, and now deep learning. And yes, we can now replicate a large number of tasks that humans know how to do, which allows us to have a lot more free time, which is a good thing. Now, if you think about it, we are living a very, very interesting period of time because there is the convergence right now of three things happening at exactly the same time in terms of technology. The first one is that information and data is readily available in a machine-readable format. We're not talking of books, we're talking of digital books, we are talking of papers, we are talking of all the websites that exist, we are talking of all the reports that already exist in Excel format. Everything is accessible online in some way or another. And this is extremely nice because it never happened before. So basically, the whole corpus of knowledge of humanity is accessible in some way or another in digital form. One thing. The second thing is that machines now, computers, are commoditized. When you have to have 5 machines to solve a task, it's easy. And it's as easy as when you have to have 5,000 or 5 million machines. You just rent something on the cloud. You don't have to have physical infrastructure anymore. Second thing. The third thing is that if you want to analyze a large amount of data, this needs to be done using deep learning algorithms. And for many years, those algorithms were proprietary. They were commercial, they were closed. But for the past 5 years, all those best algorithms ever have become open source and are available for free. A good example is TensorFlow. TensorFlow is a formidable technology which is actually used by Google itself to do all its AI things, and the algorithm is available for free. You can download it and start using it the next day. So basically, we have the data, we have the computers, and we have the software. And interestingly, if you think about it, even if you are within an organization and your data is confidential, the data is still available digitally within the organization. And obviously, computers are plentiful and the algorithms are there. Okay? So even if you restrict yourself to an organization, everything that I've been saying is still relevant. Fine? Now, one thing which is essential when we are talking about AI is that obviously I'm not talking about Terminator. I'm talking about what is called weak or narrow AI. It is the real AI that exists today. Okay? In the future, maybe we'll have generative AI. There are some hints, there are some rumors that OpenAI, the ones behind ChatGPT, have managed to create something which is extremely, extremely powerful, which is akin to general AI, but I don't buy it. I want to see first. But the thing is, AI, as it exists today, is about narrow AI. Things which are highly focused for specific tasks. And the task that I'm telling you is about analyzing a large amount of data and then from there creating reports that allow you to understand the data. Fine? So very briefly, this is typically what I tend to look like when I'm doing conferences at DevCon and when I'm speaking with geeks. So this is rare. And actually, this is what AI is all about. Something which is not magical. This is a neural network. Everyone who has been doing computer science for the past 20 years knows about neural networks. Basically, it's about mimicking what is in your brain using mathematics. And this is typically the Python code which is required for you to build your own neural network by using TensorFlow, the open source software. So what I'm trying to convey with those slides is that this is not just talk. It is something which is easy to do just by downloading things and trying things. Fine? And interestingly, AI has been something important for Mauritius for at least the past 5 years. It didn't start with ChatGPT. I don't know if you recall, Sophia came 5 years ago, and Sophia is a humanoid robot, and we brought Sophia. I say we because I was part of the government at the time. We brought Sophia for a reason, to create some kind of déclic. At the same time, we organized the World AI Show, which was a major, major conference over 3 days, bringing in a lot of people from all over the world. And it was extremely interesting because for the very first time, we got researchers and people who knew about AI coming and speaking with Mauritians on what was possible in AI. And funnily, for the anecdote, Sophia was supposed to speak with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Technology. And on the eve, a Secret Service came and said, this is too dangerous. There might be a bomb in Sophia. So what we are going to do instead, we are going to find 2 people who are expendable, can be sacrificed, and send them to talk with Sophia. And I was one of them. The other one was George Chang. But it was fun. We got our 15 minutes of fame. And the Prime Minister was there, the ministers and everything, and everyone basically who was in this field. Now, from there, once again, this is 2018. From there, a group was formed at the level of the Prime Minister's office, a group of about 10 people to work on a national AI strategy. And this national AI strategy became public in November 2018, 5 years ago. Who has read it? What are we waiting for? Ah, Zaki a lu. C'est bien. And this is extremely interesting because there was this seed which was planted in the minds of people that AI is not magic. It is a tool, and it is a strategically important tool for a modern country like Mauritius. And therefore, we need to do the appropriate things by having the right people, by having the right infrastructure, etc., etc. Fine? And one of the key recommendations was to create an AI council. Now, this proposal for the creation of an AI council, which was done in February 2019, you see, government tends, sometimes they are slow, but sometimes things happen quickly. This proposal for the AI council was extremely interesting. I wrote it myself, but in there was one element that AI, because of its kind of impact on society, because you are talking of automating tasks, therefore there is a natural consequence on jobs. Some people might lose their jobs. And therefore, it is very important to be very, very clear on which AI to bring. If you bring an AI which for some reason makes 50% of the people redundant, then there's a problem. See that? So there was this ethical component in the council which was extremely important. So we thought about it, how to make sure that government, instead of just buying things from outside and then afterwards having negative consequences, how to make sure that whatever was chosen was done in a way that was good for the future of the country. And so the proposal was done in 2019, and then the whole machinery was enclenché for the setting up of the council, and it was only set up this year. And in the meantime, it changed its name. It was not called the AI Council anymore. It became the Emerging Technology Council. Why? Because government thought that it would be futile having an AI council, then a blockchain council, and then, it would be more interesting having one thing, but the ethical part is still in it. And this council has started operating. So if you are looking to do collaborations, because they have just started, it would be interesting to see how you can collaborate based on, you have a lot of experience in technology, and they are looking for, maybe people like you to contribute in some way or another. Okay, fine. Now, this is the vision for 2030. We want a Mauritius, and when I say we, this is the vision of government since 2015. In 2015, there was something which was called Vision 2030, which was shared to the public. But unfortunately, for some reason or another, a lot of Mauritians are not aware that there's a vision. And what is this vision? This vision is for Mauritius to become green again. We were green, we are not green today, but we need to become green for the sake of the environment and climate change, to fight climate change. This is the very first thing. Hence this policy to move towards renewable, for instance, to replace all the electricity that we produce with heavy oil. Fine? The second thing is that we want to become high income while being inclusive. Mauritius is considered to be a rich country, but we are not as rich as Switzerland or, EU countries. But this is something we can aspire to. We can aspire to become much richer. Mauritius is already the second richest country per capita in Africa. But we can aspire to be much more than that. Not only the first in Africa, but I mean comparable to, let's say, a EU country. But to do that, we have basically two strategies. We can do that by having a few rich people and a lot of poor people, which is a strategy which has been adopted by some countries, or we do it inclusively. Inclusively basically means that the difference in salaries between the top and the bottom is not as wide as elsewhere. And this is the vision. We want a country which is rich at the same time inclusive. And what does this mean? It means that everyone should be able to earn a decent salary, which means that everyone should be able to create value. You can't pay someone, you can't give money to someone if that person isn't bringing value. That's the whole point of business. And a country is a big business. So for people to get money, they need to be able every day to create things that bring in some value in some way or another to the country, which means that they need to be trained properly. And in some cases, retrained. Fine? So to achieve this vision, there are a number of sectors which have been identified since 2015, priority sectors for the country. One of them is ICT services, but also financial services. And in all those sectors, we need to innovate. This is where the jobs are. Technology and innovation have been identified to be major enablers, and this is the whole point of my speech today. And this is the ultimate vision. This is a slide that I got from EDB, but it doesn't exist on the website of EDB anymore. But this is most probably my favorite slide ever, because it shows you what we can aspire to in a country like Mauritius. We can have smart environment, we can have smart living, we can have smart mobility, we can have smart education, smart business, etc., etc., etc. But for this to happen, we need to have a smart government. And one thing I've learned, because I'm 50 now, is that we get the government that we elect. So the only way to have a smart government is to have smart citizens. Without smart citizens, we will always continue to elect people who are not very good. So we need to have smart citizens. And the best way, once again, it's not about hardware, it's not about software, it's about peopleware. So we need to educate people correctly, we need to train people correctly, we need to upskill, we need to reskill, we need to find a way to make people of the diaspora come back. Our population is decreasing. This is not good. You can't build a future with a population which is decreasing. It doesn't work. We need to bring in some members of the diaspora. We need to bring in a lot more foreigners working here, like Singapore did. You know, when Singapore opened a university in the 60s, they brought in all the lecturers from Europe and the US. And the result is they have 2 universities there. All of them are within the top 10 in the world. Whereas here we have 5 public universities, none of them are among the top 1,000 in the world. C'est aussi simple que ça. Fine? So, we need to have those kind of mechanisms. And as you know, we need people who are very, very good in soft skills and not only in hard skills. We tend in Mauritius to focus too much on hard skills. Hard skills are easy to learn. Whereas if you lack the soft skills, because when you were kids, you were not given positions of leadership to learn how to be a leader, how to communicate properly, how to collaborate with others, how to manage your time correctly. If you don't have those things, this is extremely tough to learn. And all HR people will tell you this, but this is common sense. So we need to be able to get to a situation where we have much more people here with the soft skills and the hard skills, which are required to make the country better. Now, obviously, here I'm talking of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths. We need to have much more strong computer scientists and any other kind of technology people. When I say computer science, c'est au sens large. Hein? We need computer engineers, we need software engineers, we need people who are very good in IT, we need people who are very good in information systems. We need every kind of people. But for me, this is not enough. For me, in addition to needing first-rate technology professionals, we need people who combine those traits. We need people who are extremely, extremely, extremely good scientifically, while at the same time being extremely good in soft skills, but also, and this is my point of view, and this is something that I'm 100% sure is important, we need to have people who are artistic as well. Why? Because you know what is an artist? It is basically a human who feels things, feels the other human beings who are around, feels the beauty of nature, and can project in the future as well. An artist is someone who is porous. He's someone, or she's someone, who is actually aware that the world is not small. The world is big. Many, many things happen. You need to be permeable, you see? And this is what, in my opinion, this is the kind of people that we need to have in order for us to build this beautiful Mauritius that we are all dreaming of. Fine? Now, how do we do that? This is extremely tough. When I see what is happening in our education system, we are still firefighting. And this has been true for decades now. Most Mauritians fail in the system. We are the lucky few who have managed to go through the system. So we are basically destroying every year a large part of our people. And we don't have any solution right now for that. And in my opinion, this is where AI might be interesting. Software like ChatGPT are very nice because you have all interacted with ChatGPT. It can actually answer very beautifully to any question that you ask. There, one small hint, ChatGPT has learned everything. So when you ask it a question, it doesn't know what kind of people you are, whether you are a doctor or someone in audiovisual production or a programmer. So it tends to give you something which is generic in nature. So one thing that you can actually do with ChatGPT is to give it a hint on what kind of people you are. If you tell ChatGPT, I know that you are very good in medicine, let's say, or you are very good in science, from there, it will tend to bias its answers towards the field that you have indicated. So this is a hint. Keep this in mind. Okay? Now, ChatGPT is very nice because it has learned everything. But for me, one thing which is extremely cool is that those kind of tools can be imagined to be the perfect digital assistants. You see? All of us, we have devices, but those devices are not necessarily always augmenting us appropriately. The vision of Steve Jobs when he created the iPhone was to augment the human mind. He said this is the bicycle for the human brain, something which allows us to go further. But right now we're using it for TikTok. You see, we're not using it to augment our brain. In fact, it's doing the exact inverse. Big companies are using it to feed us dopamine every day, which is a drug. You know, every time you click on a like, it's a little bit of dopamine in your brain, which is a drug. Created by your brain, obviously, but it's a drug. So, just imagine what a tool such as ChatGPT could be used for if you train it, not with everything, but with every single item of knowledge which is required by a fully functional student initially, but then adult. Let's say you have in your brain something which can help you make all the proper decisions. See that? You come to work, you have to decide between two things, you ask your phone, and your phone tells you, yes, this is the best thing to do, based on whatever it knows about the organization. At the level of the country, a minister needs to decide between two various possibilities, as ChatGPT or something equivalent, which has been trained with all the data of the country, and it tells you, and tells the minister, this solution is better in the long run than this one. You see, this is a kind of dream that we can dream of, and this is the kind of things that we can build for the country. And this is among one of my last slides. The whole point is the value of such tools. If you have such a tool in your pocket, you have personalized learning. You don't have to learn the same thing as your colleague. Everyone learns whatever he or she needs to be more productive, to bring more value to the country. This is personalized learning, a dream. You know, the fact that we are all in the same class. at exactly the same age was very good when you had to train people for factories. The schooling system is not designed to do anything else than training people to work in factories. See that? And it's happening all over the world. So personalized learning is extremely important. Lifelong learning, whenever you have some free time, you can actually learn by having something extremely interesting in your pocket. It can be extremely enjoyable because nothing prevents you from adding to it some kind of fun factor while leaving no one behind. And this is very important. Understand that we live in a country where most people don't have the opportunity to become what they could have become, simply because they didn't have the proper environment to grow in or the proper opportunities. So this is the kind of things that we can build because we know those technologies. So instead of building a new TikTok just to create dopamine in brains, these are the kind of things that we can actually do. Thank you. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And then I'll ask one question on what I've just said. And whoever wins will get a prize. So let's start with one or two questions from the audience, if you have any.
Okay, I have one question myself. And you put lots of emphasis on education. And you rightly mentioned that most of us are failing nowadays, and we are the few ones that have that are here succeeded. And do you think that a tool like ChatGPT can be a threat to the education system as well? And how can we prevent more failures?
This is an interesting question, and it's actually a question that I got 2 weeks ago. I was in Ghana, and I was making a presentation with people in the Ghanaian government. And in Ghana, things are not as advanced here, but it's a proper democracy like Mauritius. And they were concerned about using technology too much in class. Will this be detrimental to the learning? Obviously, initially, if you allow anyone to use their phone in class, there will be an issue because no one will listen to the teacher. But you need to understand why. Because kids basically are getting better value, better answers from those things than their teachers. Why? Because many teachers, and you are a student at the university yourself, many teachers are not upskilling themselves, especially in Mauritius. In terms of technology, the kind of things which are taught in universities are exactly the same thing which were taught 15 years ago. So obviously, when kids are going to have such tools which can then give them extraordinary answers, they'll tend to use those tools. But this is a good opportunity. This is an opportunity to tell teachers it doesn't make sense to try to examine people on memory, for instance. Why do you have to learn something by heart? Just allow the kid to use whatever tool and come up with creative solutions to actual problems. If you think about it, open books exams are a thing. In many big universities, you bring any book you would like to exams, and it's not an issue. And ChatGPT is just a massive book. Another thing, even books were not allowed in classes 200 years ago. There was only one book, the Bible. En France, par exemple. But you see, things have evolved. So technology is going to evolve, and we need to use it appropriately in class. But this being said, look at what happened in Mauritius. We gave tablets to every single kid. Billions of rupees. Absolutely no impact on education. Why? Because instead of focusing on peopleware, people focus on hardware. It's always about people and using technology properly to make the country better. Right?
Okay. And what about students on the range of 14 to 16 years old who on subjects like mathematics, instead of trying to attempt the questions and find solutions, they will just ask the ChatGPT how to come with the answer and then just copy it. So is it detrimental in this way for their learning?
If you think about it, many students at the university, or Mauritius where I thought, and this is true at MCCI, learned programs by heart and wrote those programs during exams. And they passed, entre nous soit dit, just because we were so nice. Strictly speaking, they should have got 0 because the answer was irrelevant. Parallel. GP, general paper, is not an English exams. It is a general knowledge exams. Every year, every year, there's a report which Cambridge does, and the report is always the same. Our GP exams answers are syntactically and grammatically correct, but they are irrelevant. So what you're telling me is much deeper than ChatGPT. We are trained, we have been trained for many, many years to do things superficially. And now, where we are facing real issues, we don't have the tools. And then we complain. We need to do something big. And when I speak of education, I'm not only talking of schooling. It's much more than that. Education starts at home. The level of conversation that needs to happen at home needs to be raised. Most people, either they don't eat together or they watch stupid TV shows while eating. Bollywood, super. I don't have any issue with that. But eating together with your kids is an opportunity to transmit values and knowledge. And this needs to be done in a strategic manner. Bon, là, on est en train de sortir un petit peu du cadre. But you see, this is what happens when a country becomes modern. You need to have a modern population. And in some ways, unfortunately in Mauritius, we are still the kind of Mauritians that we were in the 60s and 70s. We have not evolved that much. But we need to do it. No one will, the world is a violent place. No one will wait for us. We have to do our part. Anything else?
I have a small question, sir. A bit broader, maybe we can have some insight since you were with the government. And what I see is, despite all the efforts the government is making, organizations are making, and we in the industry who are making, still we are unable to fill the gap that IT is needing. For example, if we at the company level, we are trying to grow, we don't have the skills on the market. Yeah. We are having big difficulty. So even universities I contacted, they are launching big program, trying to take maximum students, graduating, they are coming in the market. But still the disparity is here. In your opinion, what can be the solution to these kind of problems?
So very quickly, 2 things. The very first one is this slide. This is from LinkedIn, dating from a few years back. But basically, those were the job adverts on LinkedIn. And as you can see, many of the jobs adverts on LinkedIn are for software engineers. Fine? So this is where the jobs are. But this being said, what is the most well-known book of computer programming on the planet? Hint, it's written by someone who is called Donald Knuth. What's the name of the book? Ah, ça tombe bien. Who knows? The one who knows will get a prize. I don't know if you know that book. It's called The Art of Computer Programming, written by Knuth. Okay? 4 volumes, volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4. Impossible to find in Mauritius, first of all. The second thing, when computer programming is taught, the art is never taught. The reference book on computer programming is called The Art of Computer Programming, and we never tell kids that it is an art. And what do artists do? How does an artist learn? Not only trial and error, but by looking at beautiful things first. How do you become an architect? Don't tell me by laying bricks. It is by going to a cathedral, going to a church, going to a bridge, and looking how beautiful it is and how complex it is. Then you start feeling the various things that you need to master to become an architect. The same is true for computer programming. And the best way to do that is by looking at actual source code, which is actually what open source allows you to do. It's impossible to create a software engineer without asking that kid to look at how Linux is built. How many young people understand how an operating system is built? How a database is built? Practically no one. And then, obviously, people complain that the computer scientists that we have are not good enough. They say, normal, we are not teaching them correctly, as per the book. This being said, easy to complain, but we need to do something about it. And obviously, this is what Knowledge 7 2.0 is all about. I'm big enough now to be able to tell government, there are some things that you need to do. And hopefully, they'll listen to me a little bit more with the help of people like you. Fine? If you don't have any question, I'll ask you one on one of the slides that I've said and that I've shown. Let me think of one question or something which is more general in nature. So what kind of background do you have? Computer science? Okay. Fine. Tell me what the internet is. This is a nice question. What is the internet? Not bad. This is what we use the internet for. But we are computer scientists. We need to understand what the internet actually is. What it is. Allez, question hint. I'll give you one hint. Give me the answer. Pas bon. False. I'll give you a hint. How many servers are there on the internet right now? Zero. There are no servers on the internet. Now, this is a major, major hint. What is the internet? And whoever answers, get this.
It's a connection of machines, maybe.
It's our nodes. There's no server inside. Outside, they're giving you the nodes.
Allez, pas mal, pas mal. Where are the servers then, if there's no server on the internet?
Everywhere. In our homes.
No. We are talking actual servers. The Dells, they're in our homes or in data centers or organizations. Within what? Within a network. What's the name of this kind of network, which we have inside a building, let's say?
Intranet.
No, pas un intranet. No, pas one. A local area network. So a local area network is where you actually have computers. So what is the internet? What is a one?
It's a collection of those servers interfacing with each other.
Pas mal, mais dis plus simplement. Non, mais vous avez tous les éléments là. You have the LANs. You just have to connect the LANs together. And you get the internet. Obligé de donner.
I will put it back.
And you are going to put it back.
Put it back on the floor.
See? Savez-moi, vous avez posé une deuxième question. Voilà. So keep this in mind. There's no server on the internet. The internet is just a technology built with routers, which are not servers. They only work at layer 3, which link all the LANs together. So when you're talking to a server at Google, you're actually talking to a server in the Google LAN, local area network. Fine? Now keep this in mind, zero servers on the internet. Dans un dîner mondain, ça fait chic de pouvoir dire ça. Donc, deuxième question, là, obligé. OK. Something related to Google. Google is one of the largest cloud providers on the planet. In Ghana, I actually met the head of research of Google for Western Africa. Okay? And Google has of the order of 2 to 3 million servers in its cloud. Fine? 2 à 3 millions. C'est énorme. Hein? À Maurice, nos data centers sont beaucoup plus petits. Now, all those servers are commodity servers. They are cheap computers. When something breaks down, what happens? What does Google do? What does Google do when one of its servers breaks down?
It's fail over to another server quickly.
They throw out the server. Poubelle, hein, direct poubelle. If something is not working, poubelle direct. They won't even try to troubleshoot. And they'll just replace it with a new computer running a Linux distribution. And this computer will immediately start working again with the apps, with the data, and everything. Google does this using 2 technologies. And this is where Google becomes Google. In 1999, Google was incorporated in 1998. And in 1999 and 2000, though only 23 years ago, they start operating with 2 new technologies in order to make this possible. You can throw something out, replace it with something else, and starts working right away. What's the name of those 2 technologies?
Rebalancing.
Ouais, mais chez Google, ils appellent ça comment?
Kubernetes.
Kubernetes, c'est bien après. Kubernetes, c'est maintenant. Ouais? Non. Bon, c'est l'intelligence artificielle de chez... Non, non, c'est pas beau.
Rack or rack? No.
No. There's something which is called big table. Big table. Created by someone who is called Sanjay Kemawat. Ça. So I'm just going to finish with this, and I'll ask you one question pertaining to what you have here. This is a distributed storage system for structured data created by Sanjay Gemawat and Jeffrey Dean. Those 2 are still at Google, and they are senior, vice presidents there. Basically, this is the technology which allows Google to work as Google today. You take out something, you replace it with a new computer, and the data is automatically replicated to it and starts working, and the data is there, and the apps are there, etc., etc., etc. Okay, question. What Linux distribution runs on the 2 million machines at Google? All of them are running Linux. There's only Linux at Google. What distribution is run?
Fedora?
No. You're close.
Debian?
No. Very close to Fedora, but not Fedora.
Ubuntu?
No. No, something which is very close to Fedora, but very industrial grade. Red Hat Enterprise. Quer dire? Ouais. Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Allez, adieu. Okay, so on this note, thank you very much for having listened to me. I hope this has broadened a little bit your perspective on your role for the next 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.